From the palatial White Rocket Studios in Southern Illinois, now with our brand new high-speed internet, and in Eastern Virginia with their same old high-speed internet, it's the AU Wishbone Podcast. John, how are you tonight?
I'm well, Van. How are you?
I am good. I am excited that Auburn won a football game. I'm your host, Van Allen Plexico. I'm joined as always by my co-host.
I'm John Ringer, and I'm also excited that Auburn won a football game.
There's a lot to be excited about when Auburn wins at the tackle football, and that's always a good thing. And I think we need to go right into it then. Let's just go right into it. It's the Auburn Fun Meter, our weekly look at how much fun it is to be an Auburn fan right now. And I got to admit, when we started this, I was looking forward to how this thing was going to play out during the actual honest-to-goodness tackle football season. And here we are. So what are you thinking? It's not 10s every week so far, but it's not a 2 either. So where are you at?
Hey, listen, this is deep thoughts here by John Ringer. Winning is better than losing. Okay, you should write that down. 6.5, 7.
Yeah, 7. I'm 7. We won a ball game.
7. I'm good. I mean, again, we won a ball game. I got a little optimism because we changed quarterbacks, and I'm feeling good about that. We'll talk about it, but I think that's part of it. So that's where I'm at.
We won a football game. That's all I say is
come on, man.
That's all right. That's what we're in business for. By the way, we are joined tonight for those of you. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We are joined tonight for those of you watching on video on YouTube by Boris the Tiger and his little buddy Weagle. Weagle aspires to one day fly around inside Jordan-Hare Stadium, so he's making an appearance, but he's kind of cluttering up Boris's space, so I'm just going to sit him back down here. All right, now Boris can hang loose. Now, 7, I think, is I can go with on the fun meter this week, and the reason why is we won the game against New Mexico. And while the first half was a little bit of we've gone from the Gus bus to the potato bus to the struggle bus, we did kind of perk things up a little bit in the second half. And I think a couple of things happened. 1, we kind of warmed down. 2, it quit raining like crazy. And 3, I think Hank Brown settled in a little bit, right? So there were several things that all kind of came together to make the offense look a little better in the second half. And the defense played better in the second half too. As they tended, it's like having Ted Roof all over again, right? Where we give up big points and yardage in the first half, and in the second half, suddenly we play really well, and we need to come back.
We got to talk about that defensive trend later because it's a little concerning at this point.
It is. Well, I mean, but remember with Ted Roof in 2010, the first half we would give up 4 or 5 touchdown bombs or something, and then the second half we would totally shut them out. And Cam would bring us back over and over and over. So we just don't have Cam Newton. He's not
walking through that door.
Cam Newton's not walking through that door, fans.
Larry Bird's not walking through that door, fans. Kevin McHale's not walking through that door. And Robert Parrish is not walking through that door.
And I tell you what, Nick Marshall isn't walking through that door either.
Jared Stidham isn't walking through that door.
No. He's not walking through the Denver Broncos door. Let me tell you this. Was there a moment in like the first quarter, second quarter? For me, it was like the third play of the game where I said, as much as I like Hank Brown and I like our quarterbacks and where we're going, if we had this Dampier dude as our quarterback, I think we'd be undefeated right now. How is he at New Mexico when he's better than any quarterback we've got right now? That was my question.
He's short.
Yeah, well, he didn't play like it.
No, again, that guy's going to be playing on a Power 5 roster next year, causing problems for somebody.
Yeah. I don't know why he's not playing on ours this year, but
again, I tweeted during the game, we should, as soon as the game is over, we should offer him the bag of NIL.
Yeah,
like for next season.
I mean, he was really good, and you have him throwing to our receivers and running backs. Oh my gosh!
But also, like, he is the kind of player that, in a matchup between a Power 5 school and a smaller school, he's the kind of player that keeps the game competitive.
Yeah.
A quarterback who can run around and keep plays alive and disrupt the defense
That's
and
right.
keep them on their toes. So then he can, complete passes and break plays with running. And that's the kind of guy that makes those games more competitive than they should be.
Yeah. What would he do on our team though? What would we look like if we had him from the beginning of the year? Maybe, I wonder.
I mean, I think he seemed like he had a decent throwing arm, and it was reasonably accurate, but it's hard to tell sometimes. But I think he could definitely, keep plays alive and run, and then our receivers could break open and he could make stuff happen. So I think there'd be a little bit of that, a little bit of Bo Nix-ish kind of stuff happening on a regular basis. But I also think he plus our running game would be dangerous. So.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he would have been good with Gus if we had Gus's offense from back in the early teens and have him as a quarterback. But anyway, we're not here to talk about him quite so much. We're going to talk about Hank Brown because we've got a quarterback that did really well, played very well. He's not the same type at all of quarterback. He's not going to go out, scramble around and keep a play alive for 5 minutes, but he was very accurate. He made pretty much the right reads, it seemed like. He did what he needed to do. He took care of business. So let's go ahead and get into the New Mexico game just a little bit. It was 45-19. What did we think about that score?
Well, I just want to in last week's podcast, I said Auburn wins something like 49-24 and you will be uncomfortable. So my question for you, Van Plexico, and the listeners is, were you uncomfortable during this game?
I think in the first quarter, the first 4 drives back and forth where they were totally hanging with us, I was feeling like, oh man, if we can't even pull away from this team, it's not looking good,
Mm-hmm.
But then we started to get, because for a while it was like they were ahead, we were ahead, they were ahead, we were ahead, and I'm like, I don't want to play this game all day. No. So I was uncomfortable when we were kind of swapping back and forth with them. Once we got up double digits and kind of stayed there, then I felt like, all right, even if they get a fluke score, we're still ahead. Whereas, with the Cal game and so on, you're thinking, oh, one bad fumble, one pick six, and we're dead, because we're not going to score again or something. So, yeah, I was uncomfortable for about 4 drives. What about you? Does that seem about right?
Yeah, man, I was uncomfortable a lot of the first half. It was more competitive than I wanted. Again, it was raining and we have a new quarterback and all that, but that is the worst defense in Division I football. So that's the worst defense we're going to face until Louisiana Monroe, probably.
But Alabama A&M wasn't in Division I, right?
No, they're an FCS team. So I'm talking about like teams that are in Power 5 or Group of 5 conferences. New Mexico is the worst defense.
One of the things that I was going to do, one of the things I had thought about doing, but I decided not to, I was going to read you some statistics, some quarterback statistics, and say, what do you think about those? You'd say, that sounds pretty good, right? And I would say, that was Peyton Thorne from week 1 against Alabama A&M. So you can't put a lot of stock in one game against a bad defense.
Agree 100%. I think it was a home game against an overmatched team, not to the level that Alabama A&M was overmatched, but they were overmatched, and we were better than them. But also, like, it was Hank Brown's first extended playing time, and I think I felt good about it. So I guess my question for you is, how did you feel when they announced Hank Brown on Friday or whatever? And then how did you feel like after the game? Like, were you optimistic about Hank Brown? Were you, we got uncertain, or he's still a big question mark? What was your read?
When Freeze announced he was going to start, and it was funny because it kind of, in hindsight, Freeze said he made the decision on Monday and didn't tell them until Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
But all week, the word coming out was they're both going to play a lot.
Yeah.
And then ended up Thorne did not play at all. Even Gerner got in for a play, an inconsequential play. So it really surprised me. And in fact, I didn't think Thorne would come in the first half, especially since it was closer than we liked. I thought that Freeze would want to get a good long look at not be swapping them out, but get a good long look at Brown, right? And that's what he did. I thought a place to bring Thorne in was when you get down inside like the 5, and he's good at that read, handoff, keeper thing, just like Bo Nix was good at,
Yeah.
you know, and of course Nick Marshall was the master of it, but you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
Thorne's very good at that. I don't know that Brown can run that. I have no idea, but Thorne can, you know, he lopes along on those long legs and can get in.
No, and he's a better athlete than people think he is. And that read option thing where you're reading the defensive end or whoever, and then either handing it off or keeping it. You're right. He is good at that play. But I also think like Freeze is not Malzahn in this sense. He's not interested in quarterbacks for gadget plays.
Right.
But I'm going to say this, like, I don't know if I'm loving the Wildcat the way we're running it right now.
No.
That seems to be our goal line offense with Browns in the game.
It certainly was Saturday. Well, to answer your question, because I was setting it up there, and then so you say, how did I feel when the word did come out? I was like, oh, thank God, right? Just relief.
Well, but also just change gave me some hope, right? I was really feeling like if the way Thorne was playing, that we were going to be in big trouble down the road, and
I end tonight where it all began for me. I still believe in a place called
Hank Brown. John, what can Brown do for you? That's the next audio clip I got to pull up is a UPS clip. What can Brown do for you? Remember the UPS? But so how did I think he performed afterward was the other half. So yeah, we needed to just change something. We needed to do something, and we did, and that made a big difference. It lifted things up. Afterward, I was pretty happy. I mean, was he perfect? No, he's a redshirt freshman starting his very first football game, part of which was in a giant downpour that reminded me of West Virginia 2009 at one point.
Yep.
So, and did you see that Coach Freeze said he kept calling passing plays during the rain just to see what Brown would do? He's like, somebody asked him, somebody said, did you think about like just going to the run or something? He's like, oh, I wanted to see what he would do. What he did was not great, but who could have? Who could have?
No, but he was much better in the second half when it stopped raining so much. And I think it was
like
good.
8 for 8.
Yeah. I mean, and the big thing that I saw, there was some data, I think Justin Ferguson put this out, that like he got the ball out of his hand in like 2.0 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Cal game, Thorne was like 3.5 seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And even in the Alabama A&M game, Thorne was like 2.5 seconds. So he was faster on the release. And you could see that just watching the game. Like Thorne would always kind of look and hesitate some, even before he threw when guys were open. And Brown was just throwing it. Like they had a good plan for him. They had a lot of good short passes, but also some of that was him just taking what was there and being decisive with the ball. And I thought that was good.
He can throw it deep too. But yeah, it was a little of Danny Werfel giving him stuff to get his confidence up, and it was little of him just being better than you think at that kind of thing. No, so but no, when it was over, I gave him like a 8.5. But again, for a redshirt freshman in the rain, that's pretty good. I know what I was going to say. The quick release. Yeah, the quick release was impressive because that one touchdown pass where he caught the guy going into the end zone between like 2 or 3 defenders and he just put it right on it, just nailed him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may have been closer from the angle we were seeing it because I only saw that play from one angle, which was kind of off to the side. And it looked like he threw it into double or triple coverage, and somehow our receiver caught it. If you spun it around about 90 degrees and looked, there might have been more separation, and you just couldn't tell from the, you know what I mean, from the angle. But that still, he just went hup, bang, and it was in the end zone. And that was like, dang.
No,
That was his most impressive pass to me.
He had some that throw, and then the one to the tight end, kind of in the where he was, Brand was going to get hit, and he stood in the pocket and waited until the last possible second, and then threw it to the tight end in the back of the end zone and took the hit.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. And that was the play down around the 5-yard line where they'd run a run play that didn't work. So they came back and faked it, and then Brown rolled out to the right, and you thought he was going to like toss it to the fullback right in front of him, or whoever the running back was, but he was totally covered. And I'm like, oh, he's not going to be able to run it in, and the guy's covered, and this is going to be bad. And then all of a sudden, bang, and there's I think it was who caught it in the back of the end zone?
Riley Ducker, I think, with the tight end.
Yeah. So that was, he had several passes. There was a long one down the right sideline to
Keandre Lambert-Smith. That was a really good pass too, right in stride.
Dropped it right on him to throw and roll. Yeah. So every bit about it. So UPS to throw and roll, man. That's the new combination.
And we saw more Rivaldo action this week.
I'm so glad. He needs to get involved.
Yep. He could be the safety blanket.
Yeah. And we ran the ball. I mean, we had and by the way, you have a note here about Cam Coleman. Let's point out that Brown did all this without arguably the best receiver on the team. And arguably the second best receiver not doing too well and getting and dropping the ball and stuff. You had a note, what the heck's going on with Perry Thompson? What is going on with Perry Thompson?
I don't know. I want to talk about this for a second. I don't think he's hurt. I just think he's 6th on the depth chart or whatever at wide receiver. And this is a crazy world that we're living in, but Perry Thompson can't get on the field very much right now. And again, I think some of these other guys are making plays, and so that's fine. But I'm a worrier about that kind of thing. He's a big time recruit, and at some point we got to, again, this was a game against a lesser team. I would have liked to take that opportunity to feed him the ball a couple of times. If he's playing, he's not hurt to me. So it's not an injury issue. It's he's still learning the offense because he wasn't here in the spring. And some of these other guys, are more ready to play right now. So.
And he dropped the ball the one time he was targeted.
Yeah.
Or one of the times anyway. So it'll be good to have. Oh, who we need to mention that we haven't mentioned is Camden Brown.
Yes,
they said that he had the best week of practice of any of the receivers, and he was targeted early and often there.
And Brown clearly has a good connection with him, and that's where Cam Coleman being out gave him an opportunity, and he took advantage of it. And that's a guy I was very critical of last year that couldn't get open and couldn't get separation and couldn't hold on to the ball when he had opportunities. And he made plays in this game. I'm going to give him credit. He stepped up and made things happen. And when the ball was thrown to him, he went out and got it. So.
Yeah. So the Brown to Brown connection's good. And again, it's interesting because we knew we had a lot of options to get the ball to on this team, or should have. And it's kind of working out that it's a good thing because, with several of them missing in action, either for injury or whatever it is, it's nice to have a little bit of cushion in terms of there's more than one tight end. There's 3 or 4 receivers we can count on now. So it sure is a far cry from last year. That's for sure.
It's a different planet.
Now it's time to talk to your kids about the Auburn defense, John. Oh, microphone exploded at the mere thought.
I was going to say, Van has strong feelings. Okay, so the defense was bad in the first half, but got better. This is a story we heard last week. This is from Stat Tiger. New Mexico averaged 9.5 yards of play on first down in the first half and 4.5 yards of play on first down in the second half.
That's quite a difference.
Yeah. Kayan Lee did not play, our best defensive back. I think he has a calf or something, and I think it was an SEC game. He probably would have played. I think he dressed, and they were just being careful. So, I think he'll play this week. But the rest of the secondary has not been awesome the last several games. And some of it is, I think we were really spoiled last year with the secondary we had, Jalen Simpson and those two corners, and then Scott at nickel. I think we were very had a lot of experience back there and a lot of guys who had seen everything, but also who are very talented. And I think we have talented guys now, but they're newer. I think Jaron Thompson has been really good. Number one, the transfer from Texas. He made the big interception where he kind of caught it over the guy's helmet on Saturday.
Oh gosh, yeah, that was ridiculous. He just mugged him.
And I think he's made plays and been kind of a voice of experience when he's out there and been in the right position. But we're not getting a ton of pass rush. We are not tackling well. I feel like for the second week in a row, the tackling was kind of poor. And the secondary, we moved Keontae Scott to corner from nickel because we needed a corner and because I think he wanted to do it because he thought it'd be better in the long run for him for his NFL prospects. But he has not been great there. Yeah. And Kayan Lee didn't play. We play a lot of Spooty Kite. And then we moved Champ Anthony over from nickel and played him at corner where Kayan Lee was out and brought in one of the other safeties. And one of the safeties played nickel, and then we had kind of three safeties on the field. So that's really more what we did in this game. Played a lot of Kite as the third cornerback. So it's still a concern. I think, Kayan Lee's a future, top Auburn cornerback. I mean, it could be one of the better players we've had there, the guys we've had in the last 10 years that have been really all SEC kind of corners. I think he can be that guy. But the rest of the secondary is still a little iffy. And the biggest part is we got to help them. We got to get more pressure. Even in this game, I felt like the quarterback had a lot of time and we were scared to rush him. He burned us a few times, but hey, guess what? There's a bunch of other mobile quarterbacks on the roster coming, on the schedule coming ahead. We got to be able to get pressure, make people uncomfortable. And one of the things they're doing kind of driving me crazy is, we have a couple of really good pass rushers in this team. And one of them, we send out in coverage all the time. Jalen McLeod is our best pass rusher, and it's not close. And on Saturday, he rushed the passer 9 times and went into coverage 20 times as an outside linebacker. And I'm I get it. We want to be unpredictable and all that, but he is the one guy that I know can rush the quarterback, and we should just put him on the end of the line of scrimmage, especially on third and long, and say, go. I don't care about being that unpredictable. I think he's not great at coverage, and I think it's overrated a little bit.
It's like Gus. We're setting it up, John. We're setting up for that.
We're getting him. All these future offensive coordinators are all going to be worried about him dropping into coverage. No, they're worried about him rushing the passer. Okay, right. So, I do think this. I think we're going to gamble and rush more in these SEC games coming up, especially when we play quarterbacks that are not quite as mobile. you're going to see us rush a lot of guys and put pressure on the other team, and take some chances there. But overall, I do, especially I think the defense is not good early in games. I think we're coming out a little flat. The tackling's not great. So we got to play better. We got to, like, the defense has more talent than this. And I think, we have some, the thing that I see that I'm excited about on the defense is at least, like, there's a bunch of younger guys playing.
Yeah.
Like, we got a bunch of these, 4th to 5th year veteran transfer guys on the defensive line and stuff. And Malik Blockton is a true freshman, and he's out there outplaying all of them right now.
He is.
So that's the kind of thing, like, that gives me hope. Keldrick Falk is having a good season. He's playing well.
Many of our guys on our big recruiting class for this coming year are defensive guys. This overwhelmingly defensive guys.
Mm-hmm.
Good ones. So,
and again, we got a big linebacker recruit on Saturday.
That's right.
So it's,
move up to 4th.
So I think there's some talent out there on the defensive side, but especially in the secondary, I think there's some inexperience, and I think we're getting picked on a little bit. We're playing way off people. Like, it's very much we don't want to give up the big play.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, you watch when we line up, we're covering the other team's wide receivers. We're like 10 yards off.
And yet we keep giving up the big play.
Well, some of what happened on Saturday is that thing where the quarterback starts running around, and then all our defensive backs turn around to look where he is, and he threw it over their head. I was so mad when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Good God.
Yeah. Freeze talked about that. He's like, he said something like, if you're the deep safety, you got to play deep safety. You can't come up and help your buddy, right? He says, my guys are like, well, I want to go help my buddy. No, you need to play your position. You don't need to go help your buddy, right?
And that's the thing. Like, you have to trust that your buddy's going to do his job, and you do your job. And you have to know they're going to go tackle that guy, contain him and stuff, and you can't leave your post to go chase the guy around. So
my buddy flies around the stadium every Saturday. That's right. What do you think about the 3-3-5? And it's funny, I was going to ask you this, and then Freeze was asked about it today in the press conference. Somebody said, "You're rushing 3 a lot, Coach. What do you know?" And his response was basically something like, "We're just not, whatever it is we're doing, we're not doing it very well, and we got to get better at it." He didn't go into particulars on the offense. I mean, on the defensive scheme. He just said, basically, whatever we're doing, we're not doing it very well, and we got to get better at it. He was not happy. I mean, you could tell he had words for. That's one thing I do find refreshing about Freeze. Sometimes people feel like he's throwing people under the bus, but I feel like he thinks if you need to go under the bus, he's going to help you under the bus. He's not like, it's not that he's throwing people under the bus that don't belong there. He just is happy to throw you under the bus if you belong under the bus. That's the read that I get on it.
That's fair. I'm not I don't love that. I would have a hard time doing that to somebody that worked for me or whatever, but
it's true.
But it's also like those defensive coaches getting paid a bunch of money, and I don't think we're particularly good on defense right now, and it worries me. So this is, can we, I don't want to look ahead a lot, but I have to say this, like, whatever you think about the defense, Bobby Petrino's watched all those defensive snaps the last few weeks, and he's just making notes like,
I bet he is.
And he's like, I'm liking that. And he's making little notes like, I'm going to go back there and pick on that guy.
Well, and we're going to talk about Petrino in just a minute. The other thing I wanted to mention was that Freeze said his prayer on Monday was he praised our fans and students. He always says great things about the Auburn fans because obviously we're so great, and he is correct. But he was said that he was prepared for the fans to be back. He didn't say this in so many words, but you could tell what he was trying to say was he was worried that the fans would have a backlash against how the Cal game went. because he said, well, I was prepared to cancel Tiger Walk, but then I saw all the fans there. Now, I don't think he would have done that, but I think what he's saying is I think he thought that it was within the realm of possibility the fans would be so mad at him and the team that they wouldn't even go to Tiger Walk, you know. They wouldn't show up because they were mad. And he's like, but the Auburn fans show up rain or shine, you know, whatever. So I like that. I thought that was good. I like that he was basically joking around, you know, tongue in cheek and saying I was going to cancel Tiger Walk, but I didn't have to. So I thought that was pretty good. So, all right. So we're going to look at the Arkansas game. Let me pause for just 1 second. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry, just ran out of something to drink, and I can't get through thanking the patrons in a little bit if I don't have anything to drink. So I have to go get something, or I would have died. All right, so Arkansas. Let's go ahead and get into that before it gets to be midnight. 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, ESPN. So this is kind of sort of the 2:30 game, kind of, which is odd, but okay.
There's also an ABC 3:30 game normally, but it's. Yeah, I mean, it's the bigger TV game.
So, yeah, well, it's an interesting matchup. I mean, it's weird, too, because this is a team that we've played every year for since 92, right? Yeah, we've played them every year since 92. And here it is. We wouldn't necessarily have to be playing this year. It just worked out that we are. We beat the snot out of them, as you and I watched in person last year in Fayetteville. And they've been playing really well. So the big news with Arkansas, for those that don't know, is that they brought in former Arkansas head coach Bobby Petrino to be the offensive coordinator is his role, I'm thinking. So, you know, Bobby Petrino's coaching career is like Auburn's one-loss record. It just goes up and down, right? He's been in multiple times in the same places. He's been at Louisville twice, right? He's been at Arkansas twice. There was the Falcons mixed in with all that. There was Auburn mixed in with all that. He doesn't really expand his pool very much. He just kind of keeps revisiting the old places and at different levels of his of leadership. He was the head coach at Arkansas. Now he's the offensive coordinator. I mean, imagine if. Imagine if Nick Saban came back as Alabama's defensive coordinator. That's kind of sort of,
or like LSU's defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Oh wow, that'd be great. That I'd like. All right, so they came out and rolled up some big numbers on Arkansas Pine Bluff, 70-7, and then they had that game where they were leading Oklahoma State the whole game and somehow found a way to blow it by. I believe you described it as every possible way you can lose a game in the second half. They did it.
They were like that cartoon where the guy steps on a rake and then he takes another step, steps on another rake, and then he steps on the rake, and then he steps in a hole or something. Like it was that.
A landmine, and he goes off a cliff. And Mm-hmm. So they lost 39-31. And that game was closer than 39-31. I went back and watched the highlights of that game last week. And the reason it was 39-31 is it was like 24-24, and they both scored 7 in overtime to make it 31-31. So then you have to go for 2. And so Oklahoma State scored, and they had to go for 2 and did. So it was 39-31, and then they stopped Arkansas. So it was an 8-point win, but it was just a one score in overtime. It just looks worse than it was. So that game could have just as well have been 32-31, really, you know.
Sure.
Then they played UAB and barely got by them. What happened with that? I didn't get to see that game. I'm going to look at the highlights.
Again, they really putzed around, and I think UAB was up like 20-7 in the first half. At one point.
Yeah,
they were I think Arkansas was, messing around. I think they're coming off that double overtime road game and didn't respect UAB. UAB had lost to Louisiana Monroe the week before, and they just kind of went through the motions, I think, and thinking ahead to the Auburn game and kind of recovering from the Oklahoma State game, and then they had to kind of turn it on to beat them. So,
well, I hope that I never thought I'd say this, but I hope UAB wore them down I hope their epic close clash with UAB wore them down a little bit so that they can be that pork. I want that pork tenderized, John. I want them to smoke it slow. that UAB Dragon can slow smoke that pork and make it a little more tender for us is what I want. See, so
I hope so too.
Yeah. So 37-27, and then they have a new quarterback. We talked about Petrino, who they lost Rocket Sanders to South Carolina.
Yeah.
So you go be frustrated in that LSU game, which we'll talk about later. But who's their new quarterback?
So they got this guy, Talon Green, who was at Boise last year.
Oh, wow.
And he's pretty good. He can run and throw. And honestly, he's a much better passer than KJ Jefferson. So KJ was kind of, they always did the Cam comparisons with him because he was a big running quarterback, but he would have kind of games where he couldn't throw the ball at all. And this guy can throw it. He had 416 yards passing at Oklahoma State. So he's a good runner. He's not a great runner. I don't think he's as good a runner as the guy that we saw last weekend, but he can run. I mean, he could keep the ball and get upfield. He could keep plays alive too. So he is a dangerous quarterback. They got a guy running back named Jaquindon Jackson, who's another transfer they brought in to replace Rocket Sanders. And I think he's pretty good too. So, I mean, I think they kind of maybe I think they're okay at running back, and I think they upgraded at quarterback and they upgraded at offensive coordinator for sure. And so I think, they're really good on offense. Petrino's got them in a much better place. I think they lost that Oklahoma State game, but they put up like 600 yards offense at a good team. And I think, so we have former Auburn coordinator Bobby Petrino is the offensive coordinator. Former Auburn player Travis Williams is the defensive coordinator.
Oh, is he?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
And their defense is good. They
used to be with Gus at Central Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. T-Will, yeah.
So they last year, I think the past couple of years they've been a little bit soft on defense, but they're better now. Their run defense is good. Oklahoma State has an All-American running back, and they held them to 59 yards on 26 rushes.
That's
so I think they're, I think it may be a thing of where we have to throw the ball in this game a little bit, which is a little bit crazy and a little bit scary when our quarterback starting his second game.
Isn't it weird, though, that Arkansas historically always seems to do remarkably well against Western teams, those old, like, Big 12, Big 8, Southwestern comp. They always do well against Texas, Oklahoma State. Whenever they play any of those teams, they do really well. Then they come get blown away by us or by Alabama or LSU or whoever. But they always seem to do well against those their old neighborhood. Last year they were not really good at all against us. But this is kind of a different. Oh, I wanted to mention this. So somebody asked in Freeze's press conference today, somebody asked him, you've coached against Bobby Petrino before. What do you think about his offense? And is there anything from it? Have you ever what is it that makes it successful? And have you ever wanted to steal anything from it was the basic question. And Freeze kind of thought about it for a minute. He goes, he says he actually came out and visited us at Liberty a couple of years ago, and we talked football a little bit and everything, but he says what he does is so different from what Freeze does that it's not the same thing. And so he's never really wanted to steal anything from him or take any of his, any of his concepts or anything, because they just do different. They just are trying to do different things. And Freeze said, this is what Freeze always says. He says, I'm confident in what I do, and it's worked everywhere I've ever been. And that's what I want to keep doing. I don't want to do his thing. But they was asked, what is it about Petrino's offense that worked really well? I thought this was an interesting answer. He said he hadn't looked at the offense yet. He's looked at Arkansas's defense to kind of, figure out what to do against it, but he hadn't looked at the offense yet. But he said, he says that Petrino combines pro concepts with some college stuff in just a way to make it successful and hard to defend. And he said he comes out in like a 12 package, which I guess involves the number of tight ends or whatever.
Yeah. So when you ever hear those numbers, like the first number is running backs and the second number is tight ends. So that tells you how many wide receivers. So it's
I think of that as an ace package, is single back and 2 tight ends. Yeah. I remember they used to use that in the World League a lot, where you have the 5 offensive linemen across the front. You have a tight end on each end, so that you effectively have a 7-man offensive line balanced, and then a single back behind the quarterback and 2 wideouts on the ends. But he was saying something like Petrino's offense is able to throw the ball to like 3 different levels downfield out of that formation. And Freeze said that's really scary. You tell me that, I'm like, okay, I have no idea. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. I'm assuming if you can do something you want to do, that's good for you. But telling me that you can throw to 3 different levels out of the 12 package is a little above my pay grade, right? I'm not quite that. I don't quite speak that. Okay, so
that's fair.
It sounds like he's doing well.
I think, again, I remember Bobby Petrino when he was at Auburn, and when he was after he was at Auburn, when he was at Arkansas and other places. And I think of him as a very dangerous offensive mind. I think he can find weaknesses in your defense, and he's one of those guys like that's going to keep poking at it. He's not going to be like, oh, now we'll do this and now we'll do that. He's like, oh, this is working. I'm going to keep doing it until you stop it.
Do you remember that was what Tuberville said about him when somebody asked Tuberville, what is it about Petrino's offense that you like or that's different or whatever? Tuberville said his offensive coordinators had an approach, an offense, an attack they wanted to do, and they didn't really mold it to what the defense did. They tried to do their thing well. And he said that what Petrino would do was find the worst player on the defense and just attack him every play.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember a great example of that when he was at Auburn was the 2002 Iron Bowl, the one that we won that everybody remembers, Trey Smith running for like 200 yards on the Alabama defense and the Alabama fans melting down as they watch the dwarf running roughshod over them, right? Well, Trey Smith would get us down to like the 15-yard line, but we scored because Jason Campbell would roll out and Robert Johnson, the big tight end, would drift into the end zone and be covered by a defensive end. And Petrino knew that Alabama's defensive end couldn't cover Robert Johnson, and so he was just going to take advantage of that matchup as long as he could, right? So that's the example of what he did.
Mm-hmm. He wants to get, and again, it's not rocket science, this part of it, but I think more than other college coordinators, he focuses on that kind of matchup thing and where he can find, get mismatches on your guys and take advantage of it. So it'll be something to watch.
It will be. So it's funny though, last year's game was in Arkansas and we destroyed them. I remember we just blew them away. It was not even funny. I was not expecting the coach to come back after that game, their coach.
It's amazing he's still there after that game.
Oh, it is. Well, he and the Florida guy are still there, and yet we'll get to that. But I don't know. I mean, do you think are they going to be considerably better than what we saw last year? And
I just think like that was a point in time matchup. They were in a bad place and we were primed to play well. And I think we jumped on them with both feet and they were kind of a struggling team. And once we got ahead, that was it. And I think we had a punt return and they turned the ball over a couple times. And I mean, so I think we kind of jumped on them with both feet and then we kind of ran away with it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get back in the game. So I just like, I hope we get off to a fast start. And I think that would be huge for us to play better at the beginning of the game than we have played in the last 2 games. But I just think like that last year's game is not a predictor for this year's game. I think I think this Arkansas offensive team is a good team, and I think we can beat them at home. But I think it's going to be a close game, and I think they're going to score some points. It's going to be like 30-27 or 27-24, 27-26 or something like that.
Yeah. Is there something you know of particular they're doing on defense that's just a different coach or just T. Will?
I mean, some of it is honestly different players. I think they have better. So they've gotten in some guys on the defensive line that are just better than the guys they had before. And at linebacker too, I think they're just better. And I think T. Will's doing a good job. And I think the other part is like it helps that their offense is, scoring points and moving the ball because it puts more pressure on the other team to do stuff on offense, right? So I think in their case, last year their offense was really crappy, so their defense had to try to make every game like 10-7 or whatever, which we know what that's like. And now their offense is dangerous, and so other teams' offenses have to kind of take more chances. So,
all right, well. We have, so you say 30-27 or somewhere on there. That sounds good to me, as long as we can find a way to scratch this one out. And as long as we don't look ahead to Oklahoma, we have no room whatsoever to think about any kind of look ahead business here. No, we need to beat Arkansas and focus completely on that. All right. So, but that does mean, though, that we're less than 2 weeks from the Oklahoma game, John.
All right. Let's go.
That's our big trip. Looking forward to it. We're going to be, in fact, let's remind folks that we're going to be at the Auburn Oil Booksellers Sunday. I'm not sure what time yet. I have to talk to him again, get the time down exactly. But if you're still in Auburn on Sunday, come by there on your way out of town, whatever. They didn't want to do it on Saturday because people like to go to the game. They don't want to carry books and stuff around with them all day. So on Sunday, come downtown around Toomer's Corner to Auburn Oil Booksellers, and and that's the Oklahoma weekend, not this coming weekend, but the Oklahoma weekend. And we'll be set up holding court again there with copies of First Time Ever and Auburn basketball for sure. So we have a Fantasy Formula One update before we thank the patrons and get into our listener questions and around the SEC, among other things. We did have a Formula One race this weekend at Baku. It's my favorite race of the year always is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku in Azerbaijan. And the one where they race around a castle, among other things. It's really cool. And there has been some shakeup in the numbers because the McLaren's doing really well and the Red Bull's sinking like a rock and people are dropping them like crazy. So the big news this week is that one of my teams, Alpha Plexi, is just a few points out of first place. Lane Middleton's non-offensive name, which is a great name, is still in first place, but they're 3,037 points to I'm 2,936. So I'm 101 points out of first place after a very good weekend of with my I have Lando Norris, McLaren as the team, and Leclerc, and that worked out really well. Lane's other team, Qualified Disasters, in third. Eric Morgan with there he is again. There's Eric Morgan's two teams.
There they are.
As always. And then Toro Plexico, my other team, went up in the world a little bit too. Tiger Transit, Ringers, AU98 Racing, and Cat's License to Thrill. That's Kathy's team, number 9, and Albie Mobile, Joshua Corbett in 10th. All right, so it looks like with just a few races to go in the Formula One season, it's going to come down to the wire.
And in the college football pick'em,
yes,
we have 55 people playing, and I am slowly moving up the ranks in 36th place right now. Slinko Pick'em is number 1, followed by somebody has an opinion. Escort Freeze Elsewhere. Then Give Them Torchies to Talk About, and and somebody who is very excited this week who tweeted at us, whose team is Someone Knows, Daniel Knows.
There it is. Nice.
those people are all at 86% for the season so far, 36-6, and they're tied for first. There's a big group behind them at 35-7. So we got a long way to go. A lot of picks. Everybody's keeping moving, and we'll see what happens. We're into it now. We got some real SEC games and some real questions. I think we're going to separate people over the next few weeks.
That's very cool. I'm enjoying it. All right. We got to thank the patrons as always. I'm going to zip through this one. These are the fine folks that keep this program on the air so that John, Boris, and me can be here on your video screens and in your ear holes on the podcast. And we appreciate you all very, very, very much. We'd love to have more of you. Go to www.auwishbone.com, www.auwishbone.com. Click on the big orange button to become a patron. While you're there, you can also poke around and see some of our other and hear some of our other audio clips and so forth. John, I meant to tell you, big news this week. I cracked open newspapers.com, dialed up 1998, and I started researching the hiring of Thomas Tuberville.
Ooh.
So volume 2 of We Believed is officially underway. I've already typed out a bunch of quotes. Actually found I actually found some good columns about it and information about it written by Jay Tate, who currently hosts the Auburn sports podcast and stuff, right? But he was writing for the Montgomery Advertiser back then, and so I found a little bit of his journalism on the subject. So that's cool. All right, let's thank let me drink a little bit here before I. All right, here we go. Got to thank the patrons. It's what we do. We thank our patrons. They include Samuel Salvatore, who always reminds us that
tonight's forecast, a freeze is coming. Frosty!
With pearl white
Frosty!
snow. Carl Von Drunker, Chris and Clinton Stewart, Dr. Crackham. Logan Chilton demands Rule Britannia comes back because
Scott Wilson!
Back for a while you can, monkey boy.
I see the problem, by the way. I have the soundboard in a different position than I usually do, and it's throwing me off terribly now because I have to be able to hit a bunch of buttons on this. So let me move it over. Now, let's see what I can do. All right. That was Logan. All right. Wilson Beard, Ann Pridgeon, Bill Weathers, Bradley Blackman, David WDE Salmons Esquire is, of course, the well-known workers' comp defense attorney for.
Excuse me, did you call number 52?
That's not it at all, but it'll work. Earl Ricks, Eric Morgan, Gary Grant, a.k.a. AU fan at KSC, Harry Zager. If Carol Shelby wouldn't have seen New Mexico late Saturday night, he would have said,
I don't speak Italian, but he ain't happy.
I always enjoy his uses of that. Michael Kirshner, Phil Amthor, why can't melons get married? Because they can't love. Let's see, Richard Stevens. And by the way, I got to commend Richard. He posts we talked about this before, right? He posts the sheets with all the like minute by minute plans.
Pre-game walkthrough schedule. Yeah.
All the pregame stuff. It's really interesting to see how they narrow it. They have it down to the minute, to the second, basically. So Richard's like a Marine Corps sergeant, run all this stuff. It's really cool. Steve Trevick, Susan Trevick, Trombone Tiger, Willie Carden, William Morgan. When Carol hopes the barbecue was right, and this Saturday, Auburn. Where did it go? Oh,
Going to paddle a little behind. Ain't gonna paddle it. Gonna kick it real hard. No, I believe he's gonna paddle it. I don't believe that's a proper description. Well, that's how I'd characterize it. I believe it's more of a kicking situation.
it's so good. We don't. Oh dear. Somebody wants the "I'm ready to be heard again" sound clip, and I don't know if I have it on here.
Listen, the Sandboard Bracket Challenge is still underway. That one has not made it onto the Sandboard. It hasn't advanced yet. So I'm just going to say I appreciate your enthusiasm, but hold your horses there.
But we can do the other half of it, which is
Smoke weed every day.
there you go. You wanted to hear it. You all wanted to hear it, and you got it. I have a bunch of new instructions to me. I don't know where everything is anymore. Honest to goodness, I was not expecting some change ups and having to be prepared like this. And I'm
Listen,
totally.
the patrons are doing their job of keeping you on your toes.
They are keeping me on my toes. Where's Admiral Akbar? I can't find him. Oh, here he is. He's down. I move him around every now and then and just confuse myself. All right. So yeah, this one says
It's a trap.
one game at a time. Don't get too hyped for. We were saying at the beginning is just be aware of who it was we played and who we still have to play. So yeah, absolutely. Antoine Morris, or is it Antoine? Maybe Antoine. Auburn football's Elvis, Ben Bloodworth, Bob W.D. Salmons Esquire, a.k.a. Oh, I got to do it again. 76 Tiger, Sleazy Shyster for
Jones Barbecue Foot Massage.
Bobby Polite, Chad McDowell, Chris Hilton, Chris Thrash, Dan Thompson, Daniel Odom, H-Town Danny, In-Home Hugh, Jacob and Robin Fleming, Catherine England, Lane Middleton, Mickey B. No, One Fights Like Gaston, Algo Rhythm and Blues, Paul Miles, Rhodesian Mudflap, Rich Reimer, Rusty Owens, Steve Harlan, Theodore Geary, Wade Ward, W.D. Ritchie, Ever to Conquer, Never to Yield. Amen. Wiggle Ward. Wiggle is here in the studio right now. He appreciates that. Wes Atkinson, what do you... Oh, I just realized that. I wonder if one of our patrons toward the bottom has changed his gross, disgusting name choice. I'm already skeeved out just thinking I'm going to have to tap dance around that one again. Wes Atkinson, what do you call a teacher who never breaks wind in public? A private tutor. Winston Body, Woody the Jag, ABB, Auburn Blue, Blake Heron, our very own in the studio, Boris the Tiger, right here. What? Brandon Smith, Charles Mooney, Corey Smyer, David D., David Simpson, Josh Teal, Kevin Mahan, Luther and Kelly Ottaway, Mandy Thompson, Melissa Blackstone, Papa Todd, Patrick Williams says,
Whether you like it or not, learn to love it because it's the best thing going today.
woo! Philip Martin, Randall Walker, Rob Morgan, Russell Millings, Sarah Hines, Sasquatch, Shane Bailey, Shannon Butson, Stephen Houston, Tim Pittman, Timothy, Tony Perry. Walt saw game pictures proving Brown was not only focused, he was definitely having fun.
Please clap.
A few more patrons left. Alex Browns, Alex Wynn. At least we're not Florida. Oh, that's coming up. AU falling up. Ben Amos, Ben Riggis, Chris Como, Chris Braun, Clay Henson, Construction Tiger, CT Tiger, Daniel Witten, and finally Darren Pyle, David Smiley, Elizabeth Donald. We
gotta get better at celebrating.
If you lie to people about wearing a hairpiece, there will be hell to pay.
Ow.
Yeah, that one hurt. I'll buy this for $1. James Taylor, Jim McCrory, John Atsuki, John's evil twin, Ron Jinger.
Wow.
Please
Have
clap.
an evil twin out there.
You do. Isn't that not? Well, I mean,
I don't have facts to back this up.
but that's what it sounds like. John walks in the room and you hear Ron Jinger walks in the room and you hear, and I got to cut that off because we'll get a copyright strike from YouTube if I leave more than 2 seconds of it. Joey Miller, JT Jarhead, Justin Bean, Kenneth Britt Raines remind us the barbecue has not.
You have failed me for the last time.
AKA Auburn Dead for Life. Mark Squire, MVP captivating Kathy Bright.
Your love of the halfling's leaf has clearly slowed your mind.
New York Tiger says Baby Goat is going to barbecue a pig. War Eagle. Oh, I like.
Please
Like
clap.
where your head is at.
I like that one. Baby Goat. Paul Banks and Rich Hammett, Royce Alvarez, Russell Souther, Ruth and Darren Sutherland. So do the yards thrown through to Cal defensive backs count towards the yards he threw in my fantasy contest? Spanky, I'm at the bottom of this list because...
George Wilson! That's for why you can, monkey boy.
Sports Illustrated's Auburn Elvis, Stephen Thompson, Steve Bailey, the Slinko family, Tiger, Evil, HR. Oh, here we go, Tiger. Tiger, come on, Tiger. This you got to change this because you can't keep making me do this. All right. Am I reading? Did you say what I think you said?
Excuse me, did you call number 52?
No, I didn't call 52. Evil HR director and official toe licker of Jones
Barbecue Foot Massage.
And that's all. I'm not going the rest of it. Sorry. Tim Sauls, Trevor Johnson, Brent Rumble, one time anonymous donors. We thank you all. www. As Tom Brokaw would have put it back in the day on NBC, go to www.auwishbone.com. Coming up, we have listener questions and around the SEC. But first, it is time for our weekly lineup of miscreants, knuckleheads, and ne'er-do-wells. I just do this off the top of my head every week that make up the worst coaches in the world. This week, I just want to say 2 institutional names, John. I want to say Florida and Florida State. They're doing more damage to the state of Florida than Florida Man. In fact, they could hire Florida Man to coach both teams, and they couldn't be doing any worse than they're doing already.
I thought you were going to make a comparison to like a bad hurricane or something.
Oh, that's that too. I mean, I think they would take that over what they've got on the football field right now. Florida State's 0-3. Is Florida 0-3?
No.
Did they beat anybody?
They beat somebody bad at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, they had a cupcake. Florida State, though, has played 3 decent teams and lost to all 3 of them bad or poor. They've looked terrible. So, and for different reasons, right? We talked about this before. Florida's trying to build. Florida State likes to swap in and out with portal, and unfortunately, neither approach is working. And if you were Miami or Central Florida, Gus and and what's his name at Miami, they should be taking advantage of this opportunity because it's not very often. In fact, I think it was. I think they said that this is the first time since like 1955 that Florida and Florida State both have had losing records after 3 games. So Miami and Central Florida and South Florida need to be taking advantage of this. South Florida looks like they could beat either one of these teams right now. I don't know about. I haven't seen Central play yet.
They're not bad. Central's 3-0, and they go to Gainesville in 2 weeks. So,
ooh, I can't wait for that. Gus going into Gainesville, first time since 2019. That should be fun. That's all I really got for now. I'm just surprised. I think we know that that Napier is on death watch, right? I mean, he's got to be on life support right now. There was talk he wasn't going to make it through Sunday, much less through next Saturday. They were having board meetings and stuff and emergency ones and all.
Oh, okay. So this is interesting. The Florida plays at Mississippi State on Saturday. The UCF game is actually 2 weeks after that. So there's a bye week, the week of the 28th. So if it happened, like if they lose to Mississippi State on Saturday,
they got an extra week. Yeah.
They got a week to prepare under the new coach before Central Florida comes to town.
As bad as Mississippi State is right now, it's hard to imagine it, but they might beat Florida. Where's it gonna be played?
Maybe it's in Starkville.
Oh, the cowbells are the death knell. Did you see the SEC roll call video today where they had the? No, it was our buddies. That one was fun too.
They had the
SEC Shorts had the Grim Reaper visiting Florida, and he's like, I got to go down to Tallahassee for a while. I'll be back later. They're so good. They're so good, man. All right, well that's it. Florida and Florida State, Napier and Norvell. What's his? Yeah,
Mike Norvell.
Yeah, Norvell.
Norvell's not going anywhere.
I know, but still, they qualify for this week's worst coaches in the world.
Thank you. Order. Questions to the Prime Minister.
It's time for listener questions. Dun, 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 on the AU Wishbone podcast.
What we got in the mailbag this week, John?
All right, we got 8 listener questions. I want to say the listeners brought it last week, and I want to say I salute you. That was outstanding.
Nice.
First emails from Win Carroll, who says, "Gentlemen, as much as I'm sure everyone was satisfied with Hank Brown's debut on Saturday, I was more heartened by the return of a scene of familiarity of the offense when Jarquez Hunter running the football and running it mad. While it's far too early in the season to definitively predict this, he looks well on his way to joining the illustrious ranks of Auburn 1,000-yard rushers. With that potentially jinx statement, I am an Auburn fan after all, where would he rank among those who've achieved that feat in the last 20 years, and where would the rest of them, Cadillak, Kenny Irons, Ben Tate, Michael Dyer, Trey Mason, Cameron Artis-Payne, Peyton Barber, Cam Petway, Kerryon Johnson, and Tank Bigsby, line up if you were to rank them as well? Win Carroll, War Eagle."
So he said just rank them all, or rank them relative to Jarquez, or what?
Where would Jarquez fall on that list for you?
Oh, he hasn't. Is it fair for me to say he hasn't done anything spectacular yet? He's just been workmanlike and solid.
Yes.
I'm very thankful to have him, but I'm not ready to put him up there with some of the biggest names yet. Now, because he's more of a running back that's going to get up there over time, grinding out solid games as opposed to having a 300-yard game or something.
But one of the things that separates the running backs from each other is in big games, getting tough yards, getting carries when it counts, and picking up first downs and stuff. And so that's the kind of thing that, in my mind, that Cadillak, Kerryon Johnson, Trey Mason, that separates them from the rest of this group. And I think, as you said, Jarquez right now has been a little bit of an accumulator. Has not had a ton of carries, but also I think has maybe done more against lesser teams. So right now he's in that pile, the Peyton Barber, Cam Petway pile. So
yeah, I think that seems about right. Yeah, I agree with that.
But we'll see. I mean, again, like you said, a long way from over.
Yes.
All right, and then Wynn actually followed that up and said another question, which he said more of a rant than a question. And he said, "Gentlemen, after listening to John bemoan the tragedy of our losses to the Engineers of Atlanta during the early Audis in last week's episode, I can't help but add my howl to the chorus of those who desire both the shot at vengeance and the return of one of the South's most unique sporting rivalries. If anyone in the athletic department or scheduling committee is a covert fan of the Wishbone, please use your insemitable power to provide the college football world some joy and bring back Rec Tech. I'll have my pajama suit ready in anticipation of that blessed day."
Yeah, that was fun. They did the last 2 games when we were students, or at least, I think, you might have caught the last one. I caught the last 2. I think that's how it was. But 86, 87 were the last 2. And then that was it. And then we saw 2003 and 2005, which did not go so well. And that was the last time we played them, I believe, right?
It is. It's, again, we still play them more than a lot of other SEC schools. We have a lot, and again, we're very close. It's an hour and a half, whatever, and I think it's a fun rivalry, and will be fun to bring back. So I'd love the home and home with with Georgia Tech, and they talked about it a while ago, but we didn't close the deal, and we have some openings on our schedule, so it's possible we could fit them in there. So
2 engineering schools, not that far apart. Yeah, long history. Go back to the 1890s. Absolutely, let's do it.
All right. Our next question is from friend of the program, Samuel Salvatore, who says,
Sam, what up?
Hello, guys. At War Eagle, and he's talking about what you just talked about. Did y'all see this week's SEC Shorts episode with the dumpster fire SEC teams in Florida leading the meeting and the Grim Reaper appears? It says, I'll be back. I have to go to Tallahassee and visit Florida State. He says, I just lost it after that. Tell Robert Clay to keep the Grim Reaper going.
That's so good. Sam's exactly right. I was watching it between classes today up on the big projection screen, and I was cracking up. I did love the Grim Reaper especially.
All right. Our next email is from Bill Miner. It says, hey, guys. As you know, our opponents this week has 2 coaches who formerly coached for us that evoke emotions, Bobby Petrino and Travis Williams. I'd say we all generally don't care for Petrino or the cloud that always seems to follow him, but we all love Travis when he played a coach for us. Who are some former assistant coaches you love to see do well, aside from playing us, and some you'd love to see lose? Bill.
I don't know. What comes to your mind there? That's hard.
I mean, Tracy Rocker.
Yeah.
Dale McGee, right? I mean, I think again, I think about some of our former assistants going to other places and doing well, like a Rhett Lashley,
Yeah, he's a good example. I have nothing bad about Red. I want him to do well, and he's like a really nice guy too. So
yeah, happy for him. Trying to think about somebody else, but clearly, I think at some point Damian Craig crossed over to the dark side.
I know. I hate that, but I agree. That's true.
And then some of our former players and assistants spent a little too much time in Alabama, maybe.
Tavares Robinson kind of,
and now he's at the Georgia DC. So yeah. But I mean, I think Will Muschamp is a guy everybody seems to like him. He seems like a nice human being, even if he's a little intense. So
yeah. Where's is Kevin Steele at Alabama again now? Is that
he retired after last season? I think he's done.
Yeah. Okay. But was he there though last year?
He was at Alabama last year, and now I think he's fishing on a lake somewhere. So
good for him. Okay. Well, he was nice. He was cool. I ended up liking him a lot more than I thought I would. I had to admit the huge backlash when it looked like we were going to hire him as the head coach there for 5 minutes. I never understood that. He was never my choice, but there were people acting like he was just the worst thing you could ever do. And I thought,
I don't think it was about him as a candidate. I think it was about how we got there and what was his role in getting there. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, I don't think it would have been that. It certainly would have been a lot better than Potato.
I understand that. But I think part of it was about it was an orchestrated scheme to dump Gus and push Kevin Steele in the role, and Kevin Steele was in on it.
Which is 100% exactly what happened 20 years earlier with Terry Bowden and Brother Oliver. The exact same thing.
And we didn't hire Oliver long term.
No, we did not. That's so weird. And one of the things here, I'll give you a little tidbit. I already found this out doing my research. One of the first things I found was Tommy Tuberville saying, or Jay Tate maybe reporting, that they had offered Brother Oliver the defensive coordinator spot on Tuberville's staff and going into 99. He turned him down.
He was a good defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
A few more listener questions. This is from Dan in Alabama on Twitter. Who says, I asked how people felt about Hank Brown, and he says, encouraged mostly. There are points of concern that may hold the team to 6 to 7 wins, but that's about where we're projected anyway. I get the angst on D, but the one consistent is it makes plays and prevent points. And I keep seeing small improvements. Do y'all agree?
Yeah. Well, we kind of talked about it.
Yeah. But I think we are seeing some small improvements. All right. And next email is from Josh Corbett. And the subject line of the program of the email is, it's a trap. So be ready. It says, John, Van, and Boris, don't do it. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
If we start getting hyped over beating New Mexico, we may fall into the trap of hope. And as we all know, it's the hope that kills you. He says, I kid, but I do believe that this is something we should be told to some Auburn fans. My question this week, with Arkansas, Petrino, and other sidelines, on a scale of 1 to 10, how worried are you about falling to the hog hex again? War Eagle, as always, Josh Corbett.
Oh, the hog hex. We haven't talked about the hog hex. Oh, my gosh. I'd forgotten.
We have whole episodes. That's all we talk about.
I know. Well, we did such a good job last year of obliterating the hog hex that I almost forgot it ever was a thing. But here we are back again, you know.
I think we destroyed it. I think it's one of those things like we eradicate. So. This is me knocking on wood when I say that. We eradicated that curse.
Yeah, I hope so. Man.
If you're a newer Auburn fan or listener, you can go back in the catalog and find some hog hex episodes. They're there. Next email is from Trey Jackson, it's titled Short Term and Long Term. He says, hey guys, I know we're not supposed to overreact to 1 or 2 games, but the past 2 weeks do make me wonder if Auburn's on the right track. Like John said multiple times, the most important thing Auburn needs to do this season is show improvement on the offensive side of the ball. So much of what Freeze wants to do over the next few years depends on being able to point to stretches of this season and say, see, these are glimpses of what we're aiming to do consistently. I know the Cal game was a mix of bad play from Thorne, the offensive line, running backs, and bad play calling, and this week looked better, but against a terrible defense, and now we're heading in SEC play with a lot of uncertainty on offense. I hope to be done with getting 3 games into the season before knowing what we could and couldn't do. Even if we do play really well in the next few weeks, the offense is questionable all season long. It's a failure of the most important job this team has, showing offensive improvement. So 2 questions, 1 short term and 1 long term. Short term, what do you need to see from the offense the rest of the year to say it met the goal of improvement? How realistic is it for the offense to meet that goal? Long term, depending on your previous answer, given what we've seen so far from Freeze, do you see him taking the program to the level he keeps talking about? He can recruit, but he tends to lose games he's not supposed to lose, and he's been outcoached multiple times at Auburn. He's very open and honest, but occasionally sounds overwhelmed too. I don't fault him for starting Brown over Thorne, but I do blame him for not recognizing that as a potential problem in the offseason. I don't want another trial episode for a long time, hopefully never, but I'm having trouble being optimistic too. The way the portal works now, a program could get better quickly, but could fall off really quickly too. And improvement this season is supposed to keep that from happening. Help me be optimistic, Trey Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, everything he said there is legit. It's fair. But we just don't know. I mean, we know he won some big games at Ole Miss and coached over his head at Liberty. We also know he's struggled in places. And, I mean, I just feel like keep bringing in the classes that he's brought in, the one this year, the one next year, these top 5 classes. And it's going to be less and less of an issue about losing to little teams because they're just not going to, right? When he rolls out talent that's closing in on what Alabama's had the last 10 years, they're not going to lose to New Mexico State and Maryland anymore. That's just not going to be a thing. It's that they still have enough weaknesses that we can. Now, And that's what I think that's what he meant. He had a quote that was kind of dissected and some people didn't take the right way or didn't appreciate last week, where he said, we're still not good enough to be able to win those games if we don't play at our best. And I thought that was a very legit. I didn't have any problem with that quote. I thought that was very legit. Right. Cause when you're big enough of a bully of a team, you can win those games even when you don't play great. To go out against a team like New Mexico State last year, Cal last year, these other teams, and play their best even in those games. So I think that's a legitimate thing, but the rest of it, we just don't know. And I think we want to know. We want to know so we can quit worrying, but we can't. There's nothing we can do. But anything I say beyond that is a guess. It's speculation.
I do think you're right. I think one of the big holes we've fallen into is we're far behind our rivals in roster talent. And the only way out was through high school recruiting. And that's a long process, and we're doing it the right way. And we're going to get, I think 2 years from now, we'll have a roster that we could compete for the SEC title. But that's not where we are today. And I do think we have more talent, much more talent than we had on this roster 2 years ago. But we still have holes, and we still have some areas of weakness. I think in particular, like, I think we're going to go out and get a big-time transfer quarterback in the offseason. And I think if we bring in a veteran, experienced transfer quarterback and plug him into this offense, these players around him, I think their offense is going to go to another level next year. So, but also I think the offense can still achieve the goal that we set for this season to be better.
Yes.
I think you saw, again, the receivers are so much better that we can have games where it just clicks and we're going to throw for a bunch of yards, even on some decent teams, and move the ball and have really big passing days. And I think that's going to happen this year. And I think that'll be enough, right, to keep fans excited and to keep recruits excited about the possibility. So,
yeah, and I just think about next year having these receivers having a year of experience, right? They won't be just arrived from high school. They'll be seasoned players, and that just, everything about that seems good to me. So, all right. Any other questions in the mailbag?
There was a Wade Carroll followed up with a post on Twitter where he said, after a week of hearing the narrative that Auburn's not going to abandon its investment in Thorne, I guess the decision to start Hank Brown as Auburn's quarterback one can best be chalked up to someone knows.
Someone knows. God knows.
Well,
no, actually, I apologize. He said, I think the quote he was going for was, God wills it.
God wills it!
And fans were just determined that we get somebody different in there. So, yeah. Oh, Auburn.
Oh.
Auburn. Well, all right. That's all the listener questions.
That's it.
All right. Roam if you want to. Roam around. Let's take a trip around the SEC. Thank you, Mira.
Mira's voice got deeper.
It did. All right. So what's going on around the SEC? Well, we had I've lost my stuff here. Do we need a Golden Knights update? Because I can do that. I have the power.
We need it.
This is the Central Florida Golden Knights Report.
So what's going on in Orlando?
Central Florida came back to beat TCU at TCU 35-34.
Oh, I'm going to have to watch. I'm going to fire this up on YouTube as soon as our show is over tonight.
They're 3-0.
Oh,
And do you know who they play next week?
No.
Colorado comes to Orlando.
That one just, I don't know what it is, but that just is tasty. Oh man, if Gus can take down Prime Time, that would be so. I don't dislike Coach Prime. I just have never forgiven him for 1988 and was he still on the team in 89? I guess he was when I went down there. Yeah, I just don't remember him. I was there so I've been in the stadium with Coach Prime. So have you, but in a different game. But yeah, I have to make a note of that because dang, is that Saturday or is that on a different night?
It's Saturday.
Different day. Okay. UCF Colorado. That's exciting. All right. Noted, literally. And I'm going to check out their game against TCU as soon as we're done. So if they're 3-0 and they beat Colorado, Gus only has to win 4 more games all season to get to his 8-4 mark.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. All right. So LSU, South Carolina, this game really was drunk from start to finish. I watched every bit of it, almost every play. I had to drive somewhere. I had it playing audio in my car while I was driving.
It was anarchy.
Didn't you just kind of know in your soul what was going to happen? You knew.
You knew South Carolina was going to blow it.
Say it again. You dropped out. You said you knew South Carolina
was going to blow it. They were going to blow it. They had big lead. They were at home. Fans are excited. The fans were like, "Oh, let's get ready to rush the field and go down to get ready to rush the field to be in position." And that is like, okay, easy.
Yeah, I felt like they weren't the ones that had I know Alabama and Wisconsin, the quarterback got hurt, but didn't
no,
they too?
South Carolina's quarterback got hurt because they had to play Robbie Ashford the second half.
Oh, that was what I was looking for. Yeah, when Robbie came in, bless his heart, right? Bless your heart, Robbie. Nothing against you, Robbie. But when he came in, I'm like, well, that's it for them. They're done. And they didn't have like 70 yards of offense the whole rest of the game.
That's it. And they had they had a pick six taken off the board because their guy knocked the quarterback over. Like, come on.
Oh, and they had at least 2 bad calls where like there was like a pass interference where nobody even touched anybody. And the thing was, Ashford even completed a pass that would have put them down in like field goal range, and it got called back for some ridiculous thing that they couldn't even. It was just so frustrating. I felt so bad for South Carolina, but oh well. Alabama, it was a competitive game with Wisconsin until they immediately put Wisconsin's quarterback out. That Van Dyke guy from Miami, right?
I don't know how long it would have been competitive, but it was much more competitive with him in the game. As soon as he went out, it was over.
Yeah. So Missouri struggled bust with Boston College. That was interesting, but they were good.
I don't think Boston College is terrible.
No.
Like it's again, Florida State's bad. You don't get a ton of credit for beating them right now, but I think Boston College is competent.
And I mean, they only beat them by 6, and Missouri's they got the longest winning streak going back to last season in the country right now. So
that's an amazing statement.
It is. Missouri's got the longest winning streak in the country, and we play them in Columbia in a few weeks, and I've got tickets. I'd love to end that streak. Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be nice. That'd be pretty nice.
They play somebody harder than us, though, before then. We'll see. It's not long. It's not that far away. I know that. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. So, less than 2 weeks, we have we'll be at the Oklahoma game, and then we're going to be on Sunday at Auburn Oil Booksellers. Then on Monday, we're going to be doing a thing with the Birmingham War Eagle Club. I have a presentation at the college tomorrow. They want me to talk about like the electoral college and presidential elections and stuff for the faculty and students and all. I'm going to do that. So I've been working on that real hard. I got a PowerPoint and speech. I've been putting off my thoughts about our presentation until that was over. So after tomorrow, I'm going to sit down with our book and just kind of go through it and find like top 10 bullet point factoids to make a note of, and anything you think is be fun to talk about. And then we can just kind of get together briefly and compare notes on Google Docs or whatever. And just kind of figure out how we're going to do it. I hadn't, like, my wife was asking if you and John already kind of figured out I'm like, nah, we'll get there.
I'm going to sit there like, it's a bird. It's a rabbit.
Well, I just said anything I come up with now or before now I'd have forgotten. So when I do something like this, I know to wait until like a couple of days before it, because otherwise I'll forget everything that I thought of and it won't be fresh, so. But I'll get with you about that. Let's see. Texas A&M beat Florida 33-20. Oh man, that wasn't pretty. In an empty swamp.
That score is deceptively close. That game was not nearly that close.
I thought it was like 33-0 at one point or something.
It was like 33-3 when I looked at one point.
Mm-hmm. Oklahoma struggled with Tulane. I thought Tulane would give them a little closer game than that, 34-19. And then Arkansas struggled with UAB, which is encouraging, right? So we'll see. And Ole Miss continues to look – I mean, Ole Miss looks pretty good. I haven't watched them actually, but I've seen their scores against mediocre opponents, and they're rolling up and down the field.
Again, they were good last year, and they brought in a bunch of really good players. So I think they're legitimately I don't know if they're a national title team, but they're legitimately a very good team.
Well, they better enjoy it this year because their whole coaching staff is going to be in Gainesville next year. I hate to tell them.
I think you're correct.
I hate to tell them.
But the great thing about this game is they beat Wake Forest 40-6, and that game was so bad that Wake Forest canceled the return game to Oxville Sunday morning and gave them a check for $1 million. The next morning.
What? Why? They just don't want anything more to do with Ole Miss?
We don't want anything else to do with those people.
Wow. I wish I could just, if I had $1 million, John, I'd write Alabama a check right now and have nothing more to do with those people. Let's see. Georgia State beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, man, were they smoking mirrors all along? Is that what I'm figuring?
It was at Georgia State. They're not terrible. I think Vanderbilt had a tough day, came back and made it close. They're freaking Vanderbilt. I mean, we expect Vanderbilt to go into non-conference stadiums and beat everybody. I don't know.
Well, the teams they beat and then to lose to Georgia State is just like, oh yeah, they're Vanderbilt. I forgot.
That's right.
Texas beat San Antonio 56-7. They had to bring in Arch Manning finally after rumors that he'd been there for years, apparently working as a janitor, perhaps. I don't know, undercover as a metropolitan newspaper reporter, and suddenly he's on the field. So all right. The Georgia-Kentucky game. What is the deal with that? That I watched the second half of that more or less, and that was crazy too.
All right. To set this up, I got to give you the stat of the week, which is that Georgia has scored 20 points or less on the road 3 times in the past 5 years. All 3 were in Lexington.
Wow.
So it's some kind of Georgia House of Horrors thing going on. I think, number one, I think part of what we learned is like South Carolina's defense is not bad.
Right.
And I think they gave Kentucky real problems. And then I think Kentucky plays well against Georgia. They get up for this game. They were prepared. And I think Georgia on the road without Brock Bowers, without some of these other guys that have kind of saved their bacon, they struggled. And they had real problems offensively getting stuff done. But they held Kentucky down, and they did just enough, ran the ball enough, made some plays. Kentucky's not great. This is, Georgia really playing their worst game in 5 years probably. But they still won. And I think that this doesn't mean they're not going to win the SEC either. So,
right. Yeah, it looked like in the fourth quarter they were able to put a drive together. So wasn't it something about Stoops punted when he didn't have to, or some crazy thing?
the game was this close, right? And there was a point in the fourth quarter where Kentucky had the ball across the 50 and had like a 4th and short, and they chose to punt. Against the number one team in the country when it's this close to your home.
Yeah.
And it was
they
kind of
they figured they were holding them down and just put the defense back out there, stop them again, and try again or something. I mean, I guess that's
but it's freaking Georgia. Like you're Kentucky. At some point, you have to. You're the lesser team. You have to. We talked about this a lot over the years. Yeah. When you're the lesser team, you have to take chances to win. You can't play conservative. The Georgias and Alabamas of the world can afford to play conservative because they're better than you. They have more talent than you. When you're less, you got to take chances and be aggressive. And Kentucky did not do that. Stoops, it comes from the Iowa coaching tree, and it shows at moments like that.
That's a good point. I had not heard until this moment that Mississippi State lost to Toledo and lost hard.
The MAC is having a year. Again, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame last week, and now Toledo killed Mississippi State at Starkville, 41-17.
In Starkville. I guess those cowbells didn't mean much to the Rockets, huh?
Mississippi State had that game a week ago where they went to Arizona State on the other side of the country, and they got beat up, and they traveled back. It was, that was really late. They had a long week, a lot of travel lag, probably a lot of guys who were wiped out from playing on the other side of the country in a desert in the middle of the night. And then they thought they could roll out of bed and beat Toledo, and Toledo's a well-coached team. Jason Candle's a good coach. And they were not prepared to play at the level they needed to. And their talent level is really low. Mississippi State's in a bad place right now. They need to show up and play, and they didn't. So,
wow. All right. Well, and then Tennessee crushed Kent State, and they did an onside kick up 40-0.
I'm just gonna say, like, Tennessee is
was like, yes, my boys, yes.
Tennessee is like a Cuisinart right now. They are chewing people up and spitting them out. We'll talk about them a little bit more in a minute.
Well, they've got Oklahoma coming up, and nothing like running your future 2 weeks opponent through the Cuisinart right before you play them. So that should be interesting. Cut their confidence level a little bit. So, all right, we got Florida at Mississippi State. Somebody's got to lose. Somebody's got to win that game, and it's going to be like, no, take the W. No, you take the W. No, you take the W. We'll see who can most least resist winning. Could there be a game that's -3 to -2 and -2 wins? That would be that game. Ohio.
What if it was 0-0 heading to overtime?
That'd be so good. I'd pay $5 for that. That would be so good. Oh, that would be so good. So I saw somebody on Twitter actually said, what's the Florida coach? Napier. Said Billy Napier is living this is a Georgia fan. This is a Georgia fan. That's relevant. Okay. He said, Billy Napier is living my dream life. He's going to get $25 million to go relax somewhere after driving Florida into the ground. It's like every Georgia fan's dream, right? Get paid millions of dollars to destroy Florida.
It's an inside job.
I thought that was so good. Yeah. All right. Vanderbilt at Missouri. That's the kind of thing where Vanderbilt could turn around and play Missouri.
Yeah.
For 3 quarters. We'll see. Akron at South Carolina needs to get well. They get a dose of zips. Take some zips. See you in the morning. That'll help. Bowling Green at Texas A&M. That should be fun. Tennessee, Oklahoma is the along with Auburn Auburn's at 2:30. Tennessee, Oklahoma's at 6:30. ABC. That'll be fun.
That's
so Oklahoma, their first SEC game at home, Oklahoma is Tennessee, and then their first road SEC game is the Saturday after that at Auburn. Georgia Southern Ole Miss, that's going to be a disaster. And then Louisiana Monroe at Texas, that'll be a disaster. So somehow, I don't understand exactly how, but somehow we continue to get cupcake games up and down the SEC schedule all of 4 weeks into the season. How is that?
again, because some teams have played some good teams.
Yeah,
but also this is it. We're heading into meet next week where there's none of that.
All right, let's wrap this sucker up and get out of here. What is your non-conference game of the week to watch this week?
I looked at for some, but I'm going to tell you, like, there's not one.
Okay.
Tennessee, Oklahoma is the game to watch. It's to prepare yourselves for Oklahoma coming to Jordan-Hare 2 weeks from now. So we want to get a good look at them against an SEC team and see how they react to a home SEC game. This is the biggest underdog Oklahoma has been at home in forever, basically. They're like a 7-point home underdog against Tennessee.
Should be more than that. Well, you forgot one non-conference game of the week that we need to put on there.
No, I looked that I made a mistake. That Colorado Central Florida game is 2 weeks from now.
Oh,
this week. I'm sorry. It's the same weekend we're going to be playing Oklahoma, so we'll have to record and watch it later.
Crap. Well, there went that. All right, I'm changing my little note. Okay. I changed my post-it. Sorry, B. All right. That's it. That was a long show, but we had a lot to cover. It's the way it goes during football season. We had to look at last week's game. We had to look at next week's game. We got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. We got listener questions and all that. So without further ado, any final thoughts before we hit the road, John?
Smells like bacon.
It does. Time for some barbecue. Time and not the SEC barbecue we normally do, but the good old Arkansas barbecue. All right, our time is up. We thank you for yours. War Eagle, John.
War Eagle, man.
All right, I'm gonna let you run. I'm gonna get this thing going. I'll talk to you soon.
Night, man.